Hey, a very pleasant good morning, one and all, to our fellow gardeners out there. Those of you who like to dig in the dirt, put your hands in that nice, moist, wet soil. Having a good time in the garden, maybe you're getting pricked by a rose bush now and then. It's all part of the game and all part of what we do here on Garden America. Good morning, I'm Brian Main. As you know, this is Tiger Palafox to my left. To Tiger's left would be the one and only John Bagnasco, as we kick things off for what should be a great day in San Diego, most of the country here in California. Got a bit of a heat wave going on, John, and what's responsible for that, may I ask?
The sun. The sun's always responsible
that
for
darn sun?
Any heat waves.
Yeah, but it gives us life too, right?
Yeah,
so
it does.
It's not the darn
and
sun.
Something called photosynthesis, Tiger.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned getting pricked by a rose bush.
Oh, man, I do it all the time.
And that's technically correct, too, because roses don't have thorns.
They have prickles.
They have prickles.
Hey, so I got a question for you guys. What was the #1 headline involving plants in the past few days?
#1 headline. John, you know this, don't you?
I have a guess.
Yeah?
I don't know if it's correct. Does it have to do with Huntington?
No.
No, that's old news, right?
Yeah, that's old news.
New
All right.
New
So
rose species discovered.
let me ask you this, Brian. Spell the word Murraya.
Murrea. Murrea.
Wrong. John?
Murraya or Morea
Murraya.
is Murraya.
You are correct, and you would have won this year's National Spelling Bee. And do you know what a Murraya is?
Yeah, it's a plant.
Yeah, correct.
Well, yeah, it's a plant.
Yeah, it's a plant.
I just couldn't spell it.
It's
Very,
like
very fragrant flowers.
right. Yeah, kind of like a citrus. Kind of. It's in the family there. Yeah,
you
that
sell
was
them at your nursery.
No,
it
I don't
used to
think
be
so.
a really common landscape plant.
Yeah, it was like very like normal, like raffulus kind of a thing.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, that was this year's spelling bee's last word, and a young girl was able to spell it, and she won the Scripps Spelling Bee this year with that.
A little
congratulations.
young horticulturist.
Do we have her name? Do you remember the name?
I don't remember the name. I just remember the word because it was a plant, and I'm like, oh, look at that.
You've been waiting all week to kick the show off.
I
with
have
that.
really.
That's okay. That's great.
That's interesting.
Murraya.
You learn something new every day.
Murraya.
Yeah. But Morea.
No, not Morea.
No,
That's
Morea.
different plant.
No, Murraya.
Yeah,
Mur,
Morea
M-U.
is harder.
And you know what's funny?
Harder to spell.
And you know what you know how they say, like, can you use it in a sentence and all that? She thought it was a word that was associated with Bill Murray. Like,
really?
you got Murrayed.
Murrayed.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Murrayed.
Wow.
Yeah. But
Oh, well.
it's funny.
Well, that's good. Tiger comes up with something interesting. You're going to do that every week now.
Yeah, I got to have
I think it's
the
Morea
headline.
Exotica, right?
I
Isn't
don't
that
know.
the one they used to sell?
Yeah.
Not that she would care.
Yeah, no. But yeah, so I thought that was exciting. You know, that plants are in the headline there at a spelling bee contest.
But spell Morea, because that's harder, right?
Morea.
No. I think it's AEA.
AEA?
Yeah.
Ah.
That AE in the word sometimes
they
just
get
messes
you.
me up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, anybody on Facebook Live that wants to chime in there and, kick in some information as far as spelling bees go
Right.
or
Could you
hard to
spell
pronounce plants?
spinosad?
Yeah, Spinosad. Spinosad. Hey, welcome to our friends on Biz Talk Radio. Can't forget those great people who tune in and catch the show from last week. This is last week's show if you're listening on Biz Talk Radio.
One of our favorite people and frequent listener is Kathy up in Eureka, California.
Who is watching us on Facebook right now.
Oh, is she?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because my wife and I were talking about her last night because she recommended a while back now BritBox.
Oh, yeah. I know. I'm very familiar with
And so my
BritBox.
wife finally got into it because, we spent a year in turmoil. Not our relationship.
No, housing.
Well,
Yeah,
now
housing,
and then. Now and
housing
then.
problems and stuff like that, before we finished our house and moved in. But so she finally got on BritBox, and she's telling me last night, I absolutely love this. And she was watching a series of Catherine Cookson stories, I guess, or some series. And Catherine Cookson was a really interesting British author. But the reason I know Catherine Cookson is there's a rose that's virtually extinct in the U.S., and maybe even the world, called Catherine Cookson, that I've been trying to save for the last 12 years. I've had one that's just barely struggled. I mean, it's always been at death's door. But now I've been able to propagate. I've got 3 of them, and they're doing relatively well, and it's a really pretty one. And if you ever read the story of Catherine Cookson, I think she's kind of an amazing person.
You know what you need? A shirt with a red cross on it that says Rose Lifeguard.
Rose
with a little
lifeguard.
whistle as John continues to try to save.
And he wears zinc.
Save Rose. A little zinc on your nose.
Yeah. So, but I'm assuming BritBox is the equivalent to like a Netflix, but only British shows.
It's exactly right.
Shows,
yeah.
British shows.
Okay.
My wife's sister has it. Just loves it. She's
Really?
into anything British. The only thing British I've ever watched in the last decade was Downton Abbey because I was pulled into that.
The only thing British I've watched in the last decade was the British version of The Office, which came out
That was the original.
before The Office.
Ricky Gervais, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the only thing.
I did watch a quick little thing on Ringo Starr the other day. He was up in Beverly Hills for his 81st birthday.
Wow.
81st. And he's up there just kind of like, like he's 40.
Nice.
I don't know what he's been doing. Well, he's been clean for about 30, 40 years, too.
He was
That
a
helps.
drummer, right?
Richard Starkey, you mean?
Yeah.
Who was the drummer?
Oh, now I know.
Who was the drummer before him that got kicked out of the
Peter
Beatles?
Best.
Pete Best, exactly. How'd you like that?
He didn't do it best.
No, he
You
did.
guys said it last time.
Tiger's good today. All right, let's see. We got to set the stage today. Enough talk about pop culture, things like that. We've got a great guest lined up today who we've had on before.
Yeah, and we're going to change up. So Bob Craig is trying to save the Joshua trees. So he grows and sells Joshua trees to be able to kind of hopefully encourage people to put them in their yards.
He grows them in little tiny spaces.
In Mission Beach.
Beach.
Amazing, right?
He's always good. He's very entertaining.
But like John just mentioned, also about saving plants, we're going to talk about the concept of kind of saving plants as a whole. Because there's not just plants that are going extinct, but there's, animals that need these plants or critters or butterflies that need these plants to also survive. So we're kind of that topic of having a garden that is more than just maybe something that you look at or something that you eat, but actually doing something for the ecosystem.
Right, that serves many other purposes besides, isn't that pretty to look at?
Right. So yeah, we're going to be talking about kind of saving plants and saving creatures with your own yard, being able to have a backyard habitat. Yeah, so he'll be joining us in just a little bit of time.
Hey, John, this is a bad segue, but it came to mind as Tiger was talking. Can people still sign up for the newsletter, or is our site not ready yet for that?
Tiger's in charge of that. So.
Tiger, can they sign up for the newsletter?
Yes, they can.
Now, if you haven't been to our website in a while, it looks different. We gave it a facelift.
Yeah.
Little Botox here and there. It looks better.
Little nip tuck.
But you can sign up for the newsletter, which, my gosh, if you're on our Facebook page right now, you can actually see our newsletter.
And if you read our newsletter, talk about hip and trendy. John included the quote of the week from Drew Barrymore this week.
Well, and you know what? He's used that quote before.
Oh, really?
It's a repeat.
Really?
Yeah. It's okay, though. It's a good quote. It's good.
I didn't realize.
You might have even used it for this guest again.
Really?
Yeah, because I recognized it right away. But it's a good quote.
I like it.
It's funny you mentioned that because a listener sent me an email that said, what's with recycling items in the newsletter? Do you think we don't notice?
Is it from this week?
No, it was
a while back.
About a month or two
Well, somebody's
ago.
paying attention. And remember, just like on the radio, there's always somebody who's either tuning in for the first time or reading the newsletter for the first time, and to them it's all brand new.
Right. I try to have as much original
Of
content.
course. No, you do a great job.
I mean, if you'd have got the newsletter this week, you would have learned about the bee hummingbird.
Yeah.
I did learn about it, the bee humming. Bees don't see red, is that right? We learned that last week or 2 weeks ago?
We did learn that. It has nothing to do with the bee hummingbird.
No, but
because
it's a stream
hummingbirds
of
do see red.
Stream of consciousness.
Right. There's
No, bees don't. Hummingbirds do.
Correct.
Yeah.
the hummingbird. The bee hummingbird is called the bee hummingbird because it's about the size of a bee.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, native to the Cuban area.
We're very close to having to take our first break here because I didn't start the clock, so I'm guessing.
Yay.
How about that,
So
huh?
you want to hold the quote till
Let's
after the
hold the
break?
quote. Then I
Okay.
can deal with this next week when I put the show together, edit it, and send it to the network. So, with that said, those on Facebook Live, thank you for joining us. We see some familiar names up there on Facebook we haven't seen in a while, so thank you for coming back and tuning in. It's going to be a good show today. Joshua Trees with our guest.
Yep.
I'm Brian Main, Tiger Palafox, John Begnasco. We're going to take a break, get our guest lined up. Those on Biz Talk Radio, those of you on Facebook Live. This is Garden America. All righty, that said, we are back. You know, that break was about as long as Biz Talk Radio normally is, but had a little problem getting hold of our guest, but all is good. We have Bob with us now, Tigers, so let's get to this and get into the interview. Also, those on Facebook Live, questions, comments, as we listen to what Bob and Tiger have to say.
Yeah, so our guest this weekend is Bob Craig with the Joshua Tree Adoption, trying to encourage people to plant Joshua trees, not just in the Joshua Tree National Park, but in your own backyard. And, you know, people are going to be shocked because they're thinking Joshua trees, middle of the desert, hot area, dry. And you're growing these right down here in San Diego and Mission Beach, right, Bob?
Yes, I am. And not only that, but I have a Joshua tree plant now growing in all over the United States.
Really? You've been able to distribute them all throughout the country, right?
Absolutely. Within the past year, I have Joshua trees now growing in over 20 different states.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm
Sorry.
here.
Okay.
You said 20 different states. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's impressive. Now, Bob, let's tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, why you got involved with this. I know that you've been on the program before, but just a little reminder for our listeners and our new guest.
Sure. I'm an architect by trade, a California licensed architect, but I have a friend who moved to Joshua Tree about 4 years ago. So I would go to Joshua Tree more often to visit her. And I do like to grow succulents on my little garden here in Mission Beach. So when I heard that they were in trouble and endangered some years ago, I wanted to see if I could grow some for myself here as a home gardener. But what I found was I could not find the plants. And that disturbed me. So I thought, well, let me see if I can get some seeds and then grow some. And within the past 3 years, I've learned an awful lot. Now, I have about close to 4,000 plants on my property in Mission Beach. Now, I probably have one of the smallest lots in San Diego. So, I have to laugh sometimes when people say, oh, I'd like to plant some room to put it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been very encouraged by my ability to distribute these plants to other areas besides the environment that they're in.
I would think that just the number that you have in your yard at Mission Beach would take them off the endangered list.
Well, some not all of them make it, but I estimate this year, several more thousand going out. So I feel like, from my little piece of the world, quite a few Joshua tree plants are being distributed. So I feel good about that.
And, to the idea that the Joshua trees are endangered or in the trouble of having issues, it isn't so much that the plant is weak or the plant can't grow. It's that the environment that it's native to, the area that it grows, is changing, and then therefore the plant is having trouble right there. Because you had mentioned when we had talked before that just this week, the temperatures in the Joshua Tree Forest, the Joshua Tree Park, they're higher than they are normally, and because of that, now you say the seedlings there, they can't adapt, they can't grow when the temperatures are more extreme when they had in the past, or there's more drought. But these trees, these plants can grow in a lot of other areas just fine, right?
Right, and also finding that they grow quite well indoors, which is a big surprise to me.
Okay.
Hey, Bob, real quickly, I think Tiger touched on it briefly. You started this years ago because these trees were becoming endangered. I would imagine a lot of that has to do with environmental issues, or could you pinpoint exactly what changed and why this all started and how you got involved because of the dwindling of the species?
Well, again, I'm not a botanist, but I do, read about some issues out there. And, just as Tiger had mentioned, I just last night I looked at the weather in Joshua Tree, and I noticed that the temperatures are well over 100, even over 110 for like 60 or 70 straight days without any rain. So, based on my experience growing these baby Joshua trees, it boggles my mind to think that the babies can survive in an environment that is that harsh.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, exactly. It's the drought, and then the heat is definitely having its toll on that. Now, I know that your focus is on Joshua trees, Bob, but along with this whole principle of kind of saving plants is just the idea that there's other plants out there. There's maybe a butterfly or a hummingbird also that could be endangered. And, there's just a movement for people to kind of incorporate these into their yard because, as you said, if you take care of it, it's fine. It'll grow. It'll be happy. It'll thrive. Maybe just in the areas that they're native to, they're struggling a little bit. So what are your feelings about people kind of introducing these endangered plants into their landscapes?
I'm a big proponent of that because I get people who call me and text me and they say, hey, are you involved in, trying to replant these plants in Joshua Tree or in a natural environment? And my attitude or my response is no, that's not what I'm trying to do. I appreciate other people doing that, but I just can't imagine, how they're doing it there. Like, for example, if I were to take some of my baby plants and go to Joshua Tree and put them in the ground, in my feeling, everyone would die.
Yeah.
So other people with much more knowledge, seem to be undertaking that. Now, I did put a post on your website there, a picture of a baby Joshua tree that people are trying to grow in Joshua Tree alongside of a Joshua tree that I have provided one of my neighbors to put in their garden. And I think that you can clearly see that the baby Joshua tree in Joshua Tree is struggling.
Yeah.
And the Joshua tree in the backyard grower's garden is thriving.
And, John, whose, goal is to save varieties of roses, we just mentioned.
Actually, every variety of rose in existence.
Is doing this on another level as far as, one species of plants with multiple varieties.
But same thing, trying to get them back into other people's gardens.
And exactly that, into production, because plants can come back, I think, easier than almost animals.
Yeah, a great example of that just came to mind was the Franklinia or Gordonia, which only 3 plants were ever discovered in the wild around Benjamin Franklin's time. They were brought and planted in gardens, and today it's a common landscape plant. But other than those 3 plants, no other plant was ever found.
Yeah. So it just goes to show you how people can make a difference when there is an endangered plant or, a plant on the verge of extinction, that it can easily come back. We're going to take a break. When we get back, we'll continue talking with Bob Craig and talk about how to save some plants.
You betcha. Those on Facebook Live, questions for Bob Craig as we discuss Joshua trees this morning. Post it right there on our Facebook page. Going to take a break, a quick break on Facebook, a bit longer, with our friends on Biz Talk Radio. Your Saturday morning, your weekend. I'm Brian Main. We've got John Begnasco, Tiger Palafox, back with our guest Bob Craig after these messages on Biz Talk Radio, much quicker on Facebook Live. Stay with us. Yes, indeed, we are back, and we are having a good time. Sometimes I wish we could let these conversations out over the air between breaks on Biz Talk Radio and Facebook Live. But if we did, we might not be on the air. Now, right before we get back to Bob Craig, we're going to weave this into something very nice here because John has our quote of the week, and then we're going to get into a Bob Craig, and you'll see what I'm talking about. John?
Yeah, well, Tiger had mentioned the quote was from one of your favorite people, Drew Barrymore.
Right. I liked her grandfather.
And she said, California is an unbelievable state. One day, I might be in a spiritual place like Joshua Tree. Then before I know it, I'm eating groovy sushi in a mini mall. I'm a Cali girl through and through.
Yes,
that is the truth.
And what a nice place, Tiger, that is Joshua Tree.
And Bob, for our listeners that maybe aren't familiar with the area, do you know why it's called Joshua Tree?
Well, from my limited knowledge, I believe the Mormons spent some time in the desert there, and they looked at these strange plants, and it reminded them of a Joshua tree, I believe, reaching out with his hands, and so to God, I guess, with his hands. So that's my understanding of where that came from.
Yeah, Joshua was leading the children of Israel into the Promised Land. The Mormons took it as a sign as they were migrating westward that the Joshua tree was asking them, keep coming this way.
Yeah, their hands stretched out.
And as Bob mentions, with temperatures well above the hundreds, if you've ever been to Joshua Tree, after about an hour wandering around, you definitely start to think that there's people wandering with you because you see these tall trees that look like people.
Absolutely.
And just on the horizon, they're just scattered throughout the landscape.
Hey, Bob, we had you on, I think, last year or so. Do you have more Joshua trees on your property now or less?
I have more. And they're older, so I didn't start reaching out to sort of distribute them for about a year and a half because nobody wants to buy necessarily little tiny blades of grass. So I wanted to get the plants growing enough that people could handle them and grow them and also plant them in their gardens. Now, I found that the plant needs to be about a year and a half old before it's durable enough to put in the ground.
All right. Good to know. Good to know. And, with your experience with the Joshua trees, have you created any contacts, developed any relationships with other people that are maybe trying to do something similar to you, not necessarily with the Joshua trees, but maybe with other plants? Have you felt any kind of connection with other people trying to save plants out there?
No, I haven't. I mean, that would be interesting to find out if there's anybody that wants to contact me for that, because I'm always open to learn new things. I do have a Facebook blog page where a lot of people who I call them mini propagators, because every time that I send out, plants, I like to sort of include the people, the backyard growers, and they tell me things, that are interesting, and I always like to, gather that information.
Yeah. I was just up in Big Sur a few weeks ago, and I was up there touring some of the state parks, and you're walking through different trails, and they talk about different plants and animals that live up there, and I kind of feel like that would be a really important thing for a network of people to get together, is kind of go through these regions where there are plants around that maybe are endangered, and almost create like this network where they're this plant comes from Big Sur, you got the Torrey pine, you got Joshua trees, and, almost develop this ability to kind of distribute them elsewhere just to kind of save these plants. What also has been your experience with, you say you distribute them into 20 states over the country. Any one that stood out to you? You're like, wow, I never thought that one would grow there.
Yes, actually, quite a bit of that. Like, for example, I have plants growing very successfully in Florida.
Wow.
And the only issue is just to make sure that the plants don't sit in a wet a totally wet situation. But I have people growing Joshua trees, and they're prospering in big pots on their patios and on their decks. And so it's going to be a little while before some of them go in the ground, and we can see if the Joshua trees can adapt to like, for example, a Florida environment or a Georgia or an Alabama or a Texas environment. We're going to find out, and then I feel like the plants can adjust as long as they're put into a ground area where they modify the soil so it doesn't sit in wet.
Now, when you talk about those various states, Bob, I would imagine your concerns and your surprise is the fact that these are all very, very humid environments, correct?
Yes, there's way more water and humidity than the plants are naturally used to, so that's something that I'm paying attention to.
And then, with the distribution of these plants, you know, it kind of is neat because you're starting to learn like what the plant can actually handle. Like, you know, you mentioned like you didn't think it might be able to handle it. I mean, you know, yes, it's in well-draining soil and maybe the roots don't stay wet, but just the fact that they get twice as much, 3 times as much rain in that region than where it's native to. How do you collect these seeds? How do you get the seeds for these plants, Bob?
Well, you know that seeds are available on eBay.
Ah.
That's, you know, what my source is. Now, I did find a source in Arizona, and so I purchased, you know, in bulk, the seeds in bulk from him.
Ah. So pretty easily to find seeds then.
Yes, I find it's easy to find seeds, but it's not so easy to grow the seeds. You know, I mean, I do an awful lot of seed distribution, and I do get a lot of kickbacks from people who, you know, are having problems, you know, getting the seeds to germinate. And once they get them to germinate, to get them to thrive. So I'm working on that. But you know, anyone that needs any helpful advice, you know, I'm always here to help. I am about, you know, I read somewhere where, you know, I'm not 100% sure this is accurate, but 1 seed in a million actually grows in Joshua Tree. You know, it's so rare and so difficult for the seeds to live. Now, I'm at about 70% with my seeds.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, John, do you want to hit a question there? We got one question.
Yeah, I was going to ask Harry's question.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't know if you...
Lila, I believe. Lila and Howie.
Same family.
That I don't know if you know much information about this, but, you know, we had talked about sometimes it's not just about the plants, but also about the animals. And the question is do you know which animals use the Joshua trees in their native environment?
Yeah, for their habitat.
You know, I'm not sure. I do know that a moth is involved in pollinating them. And I do know that critters eat the young Joshua tree. Unfortunately, I did find out, I did plant a bunch of Joshua trees at my friend's place in Joshua Tree, and most of them were destroyed by rabbits.
Rabbits?
Yeah.
Of course.
They had these rabbits all over Joshua Tree.
Well, I mean, come on, when you're out there in the middle of the desert and there's just a little bit of tender new growth, I'm sure they're were
gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and that's a difference too, because the tender new growth, like Bob said, is like grass. It's not, when it first germinates, it's not really hard and sticky like you would normally think
It's like us eating veal. Is that what you're trying to say?
versus just an old cow.
Exactly.
Tough.
Exactly.
Right. The leaves become like serrated and hard and pointy when they get a little bit older, which, you know, I assume would make it more difficult for, you know, critters to munch on it. And that's why I say, you know, it has to be 1.5 to 2 years that people need to commit to taking care of them in pots or before they transplant them in the ground. But we do have, you know, quite a few transplanted in the ground all over the place. And they're all doing well.
Yeah.
I would have a good environment where I live.
Oh, yeah.
I would imagine. John,
in your patio.
Way.
John would be great out there in Fallbrook.
Exactly. Dry heat.
Hey, Bob, we're going to take another break. When we get back, we'll continue talking with Bob Craig, and we'll be mentioning how you can get a hold of Bob if you're looking for Joshua Tree plants or maybe Joshua Tree seeds, or looking to get in touch and talk to him about what he's working on.
Absolutely. And again, we're going to take a break. Those on Biz Talk Radio, those of you watching us here in studio live on Facebook Live, any questions for Bob Craig, let us know. Just post it right there on our Facebook page. Quick break. We're going to come right back on your Saturday morning or maybe Saturday afternoon. Who knows how you're listening, whether it's in this country or around the world. I'm Brian Main, John Begnasco, Tiger Palafox, right here on Garden America. As we return, those that are tuned in to Biz Talk Radio, this is the final segment of hour number 1. You'll have news coming up, top of the hour, then, of course, back at 6 minutes after. Here on Facebook Live, we just keep on rolling because time is not an issue on Facebook Live. Our guest today is Bob Craig. We're talking about Joshua trees and his incredible effort, Tiger, to save these trees. and what a great job he is doing as he is situated there in the Mission Beach area of San Diego.
Yeah, and let me mention the website to go to for more information. It's joshuatreeplantadoptions.com. And this is Bob's website that he's set up to get more information on how to buy the plants, on where to buy the plants, buy them online, in some great information about growing them, and contacting about, what people's experience has been with them and all that. So that's joshuatreeplantadoptions.com. And, so this kind of community that you've created over this one plant, did you envision what you've created happening, Bob, or is this kind of a surprise to you?
It's a combination of both. I didn't really know where I was going to go with this. But as things are evolving, I'm learning more, and I'm trying to be, responsive. Quite a few people have numerous questions, so I knew that I had to centralize a place where people could go, with the similar questions and similar concerns, and also to share information. Because, again, none of us are experts. I'm learning quite a bit. And an interesting thing is I'm learning that a lot of and I do some research, I'm learning that a lot of experts, they don't really know either.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I'm, contributing, from my end as an amateur, and with the help of, backyard gardeners, we are actually tackling this, this concern.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, citizen science is a huge thing right now, especially with the internet, where people are able to document bird migrations, bug migrations, populations, plant populations. And so it's a really important part of, what, gardeners are trying to do is just encourage life. Even the concept of cleaning air and water with your landscape is something that, people are focused on. So, let alone saving endangered plants or animals. And as I had mentioned, I love the concept you put behind it. Isn't like a save the Joshua tree, isn't but adoptions. It's kind of a neat tagline to put on your product there, Bob, because they're adopting it in the hopes that it's going to grow into something bigger and better. It's not just like, here, take this and run. It's there's that sense of ownership community that goes along.
It's personalized is what it is.
Yeah, right. So I really like that you put that tagline with it as far as adoptions go.
Right. That's the general idea, and again, because people are taking this, and I can't do it on my own. Obviously, I need hundreds and thousands of people who really care and are avid gardeners and who like the idea of saving a plant, saving an iconic plant.
Yeah, definitely iconic plant for sure. It's on a ton of pictures and images, and people that don't even know Joshua Tree have probably definitely seen it before because it's used in all kinds of marketing and all kinds of stuff. So, hey, Bob, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to join us this weekend. Lots of great information. Again, Joshua Tree plantadoptions.com is the website to go to for more information. You can find him also on Facebook. Anything else you want to tell the listeners last minute here, Bob?
Oh, yeah. So we forgot to mention that we can purchase these. These plants are available retail at the Mission Hills Nursery in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone who wishes to, purchase them and go look at them, they are available there also.
Yeah, definitely. Bob has set up a great display there, and he takes care of them, and wide variety of sizes. Like as he mentioned, he's starting to expand and let them grow bigger and bigger and bigger, so people aren't just buying the little baby plants anymore. You can actually get something substantial now. So.
Hey, Patty from San Marcos mentioned that over 25 species of birds nest in Joshua trees.
So yeah,
so it is a habitat.
to
reason. Answer Lila's question for a lot of different species.
Thank you very much. Hey, thank you, Bob. Have a great rest of the weekend.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Bye-bye.
You got it. Take care. What about you, John? No Joshua Tree in Fallbrook for you?
I had a Joshua tree, a full-grown Joshua tree. Not full-grown, but I mean
at your other house?
like 8 feet tall, that maybe even a little taller than that I had when I lived in Bonsall.
Oh.
So that was 40 years ago,
Yeah.
but have not had one since.
Yeah, I have one still of Bob's at my house in a pot still. It's still kind of young. I haven't figured out where I would plant it on the yard, but I think it's just kind of a neat plant to introduce to the landscape.
Now, you said now that you have displays now where you can buy not just little ones, but also more established.
Yeah, I mean, Bob's only been doing this for a few years. So, as John, knows as well, sometimes trying to grow plants to maturity takes a lot of time from development. So, I think, when he first started off, he had these little small, like 2-inch seedlings. And then there were some 1 gallons that were kind of just a little bit bigger.
People say, is that really a tree?
Yeah.
Is that going to be a tree?
And now he's got substantial sized 1 gallons and is even pushing into like a 2-gallon size pot. So, as more years go by, he'll be able to shift more and more and have more established plants.
The one that I had in Bonsall had arms and everything on it, but it had come bare root from the desert.
Oh, really?
And I don't know if you can, this was 40 years ago, so I don't know if you can do it anymore, but if you went out to the desert, you could get a Joshua tree that had a tag on it that said this came from private property, not from Joshua Tree National Park, right?
Yeah.
So because you definitely don't want to be digging up Joshua Tree.
That whole
not
40-year time
parks
thing going on there with the Promised Land and everything, John.
There you go.
Looks out really,
Time
really
to get
good.
another one. Well, one of our listeners, Lenore from Canyon Country, sent me a picture from a friend of hers who lives in Chile of the Chilean bellflower. And I don't know, do you sell those?
No.
Because she reminded me, and she's listened for a long time, I guess, that about 30 years ago I had one at my house in Fallbrook. And it's one of the world's most beautiful vines. And she sent me the picture, and I said, I need to start looking again.
Yeah.
And she said, yeah, that's why I sent you the picture, because you need one at your new house.
Good memory. Okay, that said, we're going to wrap up this segment. Those on Biz Talk Radio. News coming up. We're back at 6 minutes after. It's going to be a quicker, shorter break here on Facebook Live. So that said, opening it up to you, watching on Facebook Live and listening, whatever's on your mind, just post it there on our Facebook page, and we're here to answer your questions and your comments. So break time, quick break on Facebook Live. Brian Main, Tiger Palafox, John Begnasco, welcome to your Saturday morning. Thank you for supporting us and being right here with your friends on Garden America. Back after these messages on Biz Talk Radio. And those of you tuned in on Biz Talk Radio, welcome to hour number 2. We are back, your garden buddies here on Garden America. Tiger Palafox, John Begnasco, I'm Brian Main. Always good to have you along. Those on Facebook Live, a couple more people I see are tuning in. We do appreciate that. And, of course, on Facebook, Bob says, thank you for the info, thank you for the help. Always good to have Bob on and spread that great information. And you did have his website on there before, Tiger, so those of you that are watching on Facebook Live should have that information.
I don't know if we mentioned that the Joshua tree was a yucca.
Well, no, we didn't.
We did not mention that. And I don't
yucca brevifolia.
I think Johnny Carson used to say, I did not know that. I did not know
and brevifolia, of course, is Latin for short leaves, right?
Or shorter leaves, yes. Either one in translation works, John.
I got a question for you, John. If this sounds
another spelling bee thing.
Yeah, I don't want to have to spell anything.
No, this isn't spelling. Does this sound interesting to you? Okay, the San Diego Botanical Garden just released in September. They're going to have an invisible art exhibit on their property. So what it will be is you'll be walking.
I've got one of those on my driveway. I'd show you a picture, but you wouldn't be able to see anything.
But you would walk around the botanical garden, and via your phone, you would hold it up, and you could see an art exhibit display through your phone, and imagine it would be in the garden.
Okay, so you can't see it with the naked eye, but your phone picks it up.
There's no real art there.
What is your phone picking up?
Well, it picks up the image of what you're looking at, and it puts the art as if it was really there.
Too much trouble. That requires me to do some work.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
But the question was posed to John.
Well, my answer would be yes and no. I'm interested that somebody thought of that, and no, I would have no interest in ever using it or doing it.
I just think it's interesting what we're doing with our phones now.
Yeah.
You know, I remember years ago, before Tiger's time, when we still had rotary phones. Okay? Now, then the big thing was in the late 60s, you know, push-button phones coming out.
With huge cords.
And they had, so you had the numbers on there, then you had like the little
so you could go in another room and talk.
So you had like the little hashtag on there, the little tic-tac-toe sign. And people said, well, what is that going to be for? Hey, someday you'll be doing your banking on the phone. What?
That's what they said that was going to be for?
You're going to be doing your banking and certain things, and which never happened. And then I recall back in early 60s going to Disneyland when Pac Bell had an exhibit of picture phones. You know, someday soon.
People would
Epcot
say,
Center.
someday you can see who you're talking to.
See who you're talking to. Yeah. And the difference is, and they still have the technology, but I guess it might be outdated to a certain degree. It was not through a computer. It was actually like, what would you say, John? Like looking at, not film, but like a camera? Maybe a regular camera, video?
Something like that,
Maybe not even a video camera. Maybe just a regular, like, 8mm camera.
I think it was like a television.
Television, yeah. That's even better. And they had it on display at Disneyland. You could actually pick it up and talk to people within that room. You know, the banquet center, wherever it was. And it never came to be, but of course it eventually, you know, morphed into what we have today on your phone.
How about UPC symbols?
Which is?
The universal product code that's
on.
The
lines, the barcode.
Oh, the barcodes.
Barcodes.
Exactly, yeah, right.
Those came out in the 50s when there were no computers, no technology to use those, and every product put them on. How in the world would you get, unless it's a vast conspiracy, which I'm sure it is.
No, it's UFO technology, which we're quickly finding out.
I'm sure.
Just like what is that?
Velcro?
No. You know what? Let's talk about Velcro. Don't you think it's much safer to have Velcro where your zipper is than
a zipper?
Steel metal down there that can cause a lot of problems?
I agree. You're so right.
And Velcro was 50s, I think, too, John, right?
Kathy and Neelan says Tomorrowland.
Yeah.
She's right. About. Yeah, Tomorrowland. Right, exactly.
Tomorrowland. Yeah. Hey, can we get back to gardening?
No,
please.
You're silly.
Please.
You're silly. Anyway, Tiger.
I had a question because when, the previous break, we were talking about the Chilean bellflower, which is Lapidaria, if anyone's interested, and reputed to be one of the most beautiful vines in the world, and I think it absolutely is. But it made me think, I need to get another one. Where would I get one? And my first thought was I need to ask Tiger if he carries them.
Mm-hmm.
And he said no, but I did find somewhere online, and I want to ask my listeners if they've ever bought from Far Reaches Farm, which sounds like a hippie endeavor up in Oregon or Washington.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine.
But I looked at the plants that they're offering, and they're little liners, but I'm always happy to grow something on. And they've got one of the best selections of rare plants that I've seen online.
Really?
So good that I probably will place an order.
See what Lenore said on Facebook?
What? What did Lenore say?
John, I could buy seeds and we'll try to grow the Lapidaria roses. Lapidaria. Type
Rosea.
Velcro can be more reliable than metal zippers in many cases. See, when we drift off the horticultural subject, people still chime in. We have very smart listeners.
Right.
By the way, we took a survey.
Well, look, first of all, I want to tell Lenore you don't need to grow the seeds because I'm almost convinced I'm going to just buy a plant from Far Reaches Nursery and see what it's like and grow it on.
We took a survey about a month ago with our listeners and viewers.
But thank you, Lenore.
And you'll be happy to know that our listeners and viewers came in the top 10 in the country of intelligence of people who listen to radio shows and watch programs on Facebook Live. I think number 8, but steadily climbing.
Out of the top 10 viewers?
11. So congratulations on the intellect that we have here on Garden America.
You're talking about, again, listeners, not hosts.
Listeners, viewers. Oh, we didn't even crack the top 100, John.
Yeah.
Geez, I'm looking through the Far Reaches Farms Conservancy plant list.
Yeah.
There's a Dianthus monk silver black. Absolutely gorgeous.
Really?
I'm going to have to go on there
That
later.
sounds good.
Yeah,
Just
there's
your
some great
description.
plants on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what?
Put that website. Can you put that website up there on the Facebook page?
I will share it right now.
Great idea.
But again, we don't know anything about this website.
no,
Yeah.
no. So this is your own risk.
But you know what? I read about them, and even though they sound a little out there and hippie type people, they sound like the kind of people that are dedicated to what they're doing, and like this is their life. So I think it would be a good idea.
You know, for many years, John, we dealt with some of those same kind of people, very nice people, up in Oregon.
I'm sitting right here. No. Oh, up in Oregon.
Yeah.
Are you talking about my business partner, Alice Doyle?
Yes. Yes.
At Loghouse Plants?
And when I was up there with Dana years ago, we took a tour.
Yeah.
And very interesting what they've done. It's almost like time has stood still.
Yeah.
And what they're doing up there is just a fantastic job, and how they started from such humble beginnings to where they are now.
Right. I think these people are even further out than Alice and her crew. Yeah, Alice has got, actually, they have a really informative website, loghouseplants.com, if you want to learn about, especially edibles. Go there and take a look and see the information that they have. And do you know my computer just ran out of battery?
What?
That's a shame.
even
It's always
though
an
it's
issue every
plugged
week.
in.
Now, see, last week, John didn't bring his computer. He had his phone.
Didn't run out of battery then.
And now his batteries are not up to snuff on his computer.
So
we'll
on
take
this,
over, Tiger.
on this
Go ahead.
idea of saving plants, Brian.
Yes.
If you were to pick one plant that like really inspired you to save, what would that be?
You mean it doesn't have to be endangered?
No,
just
it doesn't
if
have to be
was?
endangered now, but like you feel passionate about it. Like John feels passionate about his rose collection. What would be a plant that you would feel passionate about saving?
Wow. You know, I always default to something, and you're going to say, that's what I thought you were going to say. That's so boring.
No.
The palm tree.
Palm trees?
I love palms.
Different palms?
The varieties of palms I just love. You put a palm tree anywhere, you're on vacation, as far as I'm concerned. So I think that comes to mind first and foremost. And surprisingly, I would also say orchids.
Orchids. That's one.
Orchids.
big list, yeah.
I'm staying away from orchids because I know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Much like with John and roses or tattoos, one is not enough. You're going to keep
Or
going.
Doritos.
Or Doritos.
Lay's.
Or
Lay's.
Cheetos.
Lay's is, which is the one that
Lay's.
says
You can't,
one-
but you can't eat just one.
Yeah.
Hey, it is break time. Hold those thoughts. Those on Facebook Live, questions, comments, whatever direction you want to take us, we will join the journey, as they say. So again, those on Biz Talk Radio, got to take a break. Facebook Live coming back much sooner. Thank you for listening to us on Biz Talk Radio as you support our many sponsors. I'm Brian Main, John Bagnesker, Tiger Palafox. Saturday afternoon, Saturday morning here with Garden America. Once again, we appreciate you tuning in, watching, listening on Biz Talk Radio, watching on Facebook Live. The advantage of Facebook Live gives you the opportunity to be right there with us live, ask your questions, and post your comments, and hopefully we give you some kind of an intelligent answer back, Tiger.
Have you been to Rancho Soledad growers here in San Diego?
I think maybe a long time ago, but
Yeah.
not recently.
Yeah. If you like palm trees, then
Have I driven by this place a lot?
Never.
There's a place
You
on
have to drive to it. You
Okay.
can never drive by it.
Now, on the way to John's house on the 15, is it on the west side of the freeway? There's a,
Nope. No, that's not the place.
Well, no, but there's another
Oh.
place that you just look and there's nothing but palm trees.
Yeah, there's a lot of palm growers up there by
So
John.
this you have to know where you're going.
Yeah, it's in Rancho Santa Fe. So it's in that area, and you would have to drive there to drive by.
Different varieties of palms, just everything.
One of the original founders' goals was he would travel the world looking for new species and then bring them back and kind of save them and, propagate them. And, they also have a tissue
Jerry
culture.
Hunter, right?
Yep. Yeah, they also have a tissue culture lab. But
Wow.
when you go to this nursery, you feel like you're in Jurassic Park. And this was before Jurassic Park that he started this nursery.
Because of the growth,
the look,
how
the
big
growth,
everything is.
There's like their structures are all wood, and they have this. It's older now, the greenhouse, but the greenhouse looks like some kind of structure that would house a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
So you can go up there and buy whatever you want?
It's a retail nursery, but they specialize in very exotic, unique plants, and they specialize in specimen plants. So unlike some nurseries that are going to sell baby plants, they try to specialize in more specimens. So, if you're looking for a 25-year-old palm tree, where normally you can only find a 5-year-old one of this variety, they're going to have that 25-year-old one, and it's going to be in full maturity.
So when it comes to palms, whatever you want, you're going to find it.
Palms, cycads, all kinds of wonderful stuff. So yeah, if you should go there. You and Dana, it'd be worth the drive
that'd be fun.
Just to check it out. Yeah. Have you been there?
I wasn't listening to everything you said.
Yeah.
But did you mention, isn't that the place that always played the classical music?
When you walk,
background?
No, when you walk in, they just have speakers. It's a huge nursery, and they have speakers everywhere. And as you're walking through, you just hear classical music.
And that's why the plants are growing so well.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you want to read
Jimmy's note?
Jimmy's note, which is very interesting. Jimmy, what a guy. This guy's got an interesting background in a lot of aspects.
Oh, yeah, he's done a lot of things. He said that, hi, guys, speaking about UPC coding, in 1967, I began working with a company which was competing with IBM and NCR, National Cash Register, to determine what shape the UPC code would be.
Which is...
And again,
very interesting, yeah.
1967.
Yeah, which we were still...
The only computer then was UNIVAC.
Right, and when you went to the store, the cashiers and the people who checked you out were still, boom, 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 hitting the buttons and cha-ching, the old cha-ching, which we don't hear anymore.
Anyone who's worked retail knows this, but you might have forgotten if you've never worked in retail, the pricing guns. You would have to go and you'd have to price every single item that came into the store. Tiger, you probably don't remember that, do you?
Pricing we still use price guns at the nursery.
Do you?
Yeah, to put the price on them.
But do they have UPC codes?
No, they don't have UPC codes. Yeah. But I remember,
well, it used to be that if you went into a grocery store, you would never find anything without a price tag on the item you were buying.
Right.
And do you remember when UPC first started that back then, you were never sure if it was going to ring up the correct price.
Exactly.
So
that's true.
If it rang up the wrong price, they would give it to you for free.
Mm-hmm.
Some
you had
stores
to depend on the cashier checking you out to punch in the correct numbers.
Yeah, and exactly, having the correct price on it, the correct numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And then, nowadays, manufacturers are always changing UPC codes, so you didn't know if it would ring up the same or if it was be the same product as a whole.
We have a question for you from Carolyn.
I posted the link to Rancho Soledad Nursery.
Okay.
So she asked, what was the nursery again? And I posted a link to their website. So you can find out more information about them as well. If you're in Southern California, worth a visit. And when I say Southern California, I think it's even worth
the
a
drive.
Like if you're in Orange County or somewhere, it'd be worth driving down and checking it out. You can make a day out of it and go to the Botanical Garden and see a imaginary art exhibit, and then go to Rancho Soledad Nursery and see real
an imaginary art exhibit.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to drive down, I was just going to look to see if they're still in business in Encinitas. Is Jungle Music?
Oh, that nursery?
Yeah.
I haven't been there.
If you're looking for rare palms, some of the rarest palms and cycads can be bought there. They're all small sizes.
Yeah.
Rancho Soledad has large specimens that you can look at. But if you want something small to start with and really rare, Jungle Music used to be a fantastic spot. I remember Dr. Phil Bergman was the person who owned Jungle Music, and his house in San Diego used to have a swimming pool. This is before he moved in.
In the shape of a palm tree.
And his nursery was at his home. You could not get within 2 inches of the pool because there were plants in pots all around it.
Really?
Yeah.
Did he even use it as a swimming pool, or was it just a pond that was a holding tank for water.
Well, the water looked clean, but I don't know how you'd get to it.
You know those islands those man-made islands they created off Dubai?
Yeah.
And some of those islands look like a palm tree.
Yeah.
You've seen those.
Little branches off of it. Yep.
Which, by the way, I don't think that idea took off too well. They're having problems with erosion or something. It's just they're not holding up as well.
Shocking.
Good idea, but
trying to completely defy nature
Yep.
and create, something. Yeah.
Who'd have thought?
Yeah.
I did look up jungle music online, so if you go to junglemusic.com and you don't want to visit them, you can mail order. They ship all
cool.
over the country.
So palm trees would be yours.
Yeah,
Orchids would be
orchids,
a close.
right.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to make money, collect cycads.
Yeah. Yeah. Those can go for a lot
Right.
of money.
Tiger's
supply and
still
demand?
young enough to where he could start planting cycads and make some money.
Is that because supply and demand? More people want them than they are available?
Oh, yeah, and they're pretty slow growing, too, so
Yeah.
you get
Yeah.
specimen size.
But-
I have a macrozamia, I think it is, at my house, that I had put in the ground, and somebody came and offered me $1,200 for it. And it was just a little tiny thing. So I kept it and moved it to my new house, and it's in a pot and going to go in the ground again. But, now I assume it's worth at least double that.
But Brian, check out how specific these plants can be. That if, for instance, John was growing his and it was facing south, okay, when you bring it to your house, you're supposed to keep it
Facing
south. Because, they're, like John mentioned, they're very slow growing and they're these big fans
You
out.
would slow the growth down because it would turn the other way.
Well, like it would kind of like, some of the real exotic ones you have to be real careful with because it'll mess it up.
Got to hold that thought. Got to take a break. Talking cycads, palms. Quick break here. Biz Talk Radio, Facebook Live. Brian Main, John Bagnasker, Tiger Palafox here on Garden America. Stay with us. We have returned from the studio. We're still in the studio. Those on Biz Talk Radio, Facebook Live, we do appreciate it. Just prior to the break, Tagi, you were mentioning that if you bought a cycad, it was facing south. When you took it home, you should plant it facing the same way.
I think what he was trying to say is they're geotropic.
Right.
So the
Well, I knew that. I thought that was an assumption.
so
Thank you
that
for
the
clearing that
leaves
up.
when it's only when the new unless I'm mistaken, and I could very well be, it's when the new leaves come out. As they're coming out, you have to make sure you don't change the direction because they're already acclimated to the pull of the Earth, not the gravity, but
The polarity.
the polarity, right? And it'll twist the leaves.
Right.
After that, the next set would come out okay.
Right.
The whole axis thing. Polarity, axis.
Yeah,
Moon.
the magnetic poles of the Earth is
Right,
what I was
which
trying to
affects
think
the
of.
tides, by the way. That's why you have high tide, low tide. The moon, the gravity of the moon.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk astronomy, if astronomy is your bag, we can
It's
fit
the
that
molecules.
in. Molecules. I love that. You know, it's funny. We used to have an engineer at the old radio station I'd work with, and no matter what the problem is, we'd say, hey, John, what about this? He'd go, it's ballistics. What?
Ballistics.
Ballistics. What are you talking about? I'm not in a crime lab at the police station. What do you mean ballistics? That was his answer for everything. It's ballistics.
Oh.
I'm going to use that on you next time, John.
Yeah.
Computers not working? Ballistics. So welcome back. Facebook Live, questions, comments. What's happening, John?
Did you plan anything this week?
I didn't plant, but I put your very
Did
nice Simceleb Rose in the perfect location.
Oh.
And you know what? That bloom hasn't changed a bit. It looks exactly like it did a week ago.
You know, it's a florist rose, so the blooms last
They're gonna
longer
last
than
a
a
while,
regular.
which I like.
Yeah.
It's a little too small for me to cut and put into a vase inside. But I'm
Yeah,
looking
they are
forward to that.
smaller flowers. They're
Yeah.
not as big as huge hybrid teas. How are the other three roses doing that I
Outstanding.
gave you?
But,
They've all bloomed now, right?
Yeah. Oh, several times over. But a lot of water because of the heat we've had. I'm
Yeah.
out there watering every other day, if not every day. So
Yeah. I know. Try watering 1,300 every day.
no, that's where you've gone off the deep end.
I'd like for you to come and help me water someday.
We could hang out. Maybe the three of us. Maybe what we do is we take the show up there. We do it live. We take a roving camera, and for 2 hours, you could just water plants for the people.
My library's
How
about
exciting would that be?
Hey, people watch other things that I
People
think would
watch
be less
people
exciting.
eat on YouTube.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
My library's about 80% finished.
Yeah.
With books on the shelves and things. I just put a record player in it.
A record player.
Yeah. My son bought me a record, and daughter-in-law bought me a record player for Father's Day. And do you know how long it's been since I've had a record player?
Well, do you still have
probably have one?
Do you have record? I don't. I sold all my records several years ago, and I regret that.
Well, what I like about this record player, it's got the big, what are those megaphones? Those trumpet
Like
things?
the RCA dog?
Yeah. Yeah.
Looking into the megaphone. It's got that?
It's got that, and it hooks up to Bluetooth, so you can hook your phone and play music out of it.
Wow.
But then you can also use it as a normal record player.
You know what? That's interesting, and I'd say that would be something I would like, but we have so many ways to play music in our house with Alexa, our phone, with Sirius XM. It's just like we got music coming out of every room.
See, I don't deal with Alexa.
And I've got Alexa in my car. So I can she does anything in my car. Alexa, take over the steering wheel. She drives the car for me.
All right.
I'd like to see a grudge match in the ring between Siri and Alexa. Anyway, Tiger, go ahead.
So, John, in the library, you're putting all these books away, which means you probably, the first time you've been handling them in quite some time, at least since packing them. Just this week.
Oh, some great titles.
Yeah, just this week, one of my workers, we have a library at the nursery.
Mm-hmm.
We just kind of add books to. Found a book, and he's like, "Hey, can I borrow this one?" And I was looking at him like, I said yes, but I'm like, "Wow, when you're done, I want to read it." I didn't even know we had this book. It's the title is Trees in Paradise, and it's a California history of California trees. Because as we know, and we've talked about on the program before, a lot of regions in California don't have a lot of trees. We've been introducing a lot.
Sure.
And it's the whole story behind the introduction of all these trees and things like that. I'm like, it looks like an interesting book. Has there been anything that's jumped off the shelf to you that you hadn't seen in a while?
Well, one of the things that surprised me is that I'm grouping the books by category, right?
Using the Dewey Decimal System?
So all the houseplant books are together. I was surprised to find that I have a whole shelf of books on water plants. It's like,
when was the last time you had a water plant?
I don't know if I ever have.
But he's got the book in case he does.
Exactly.
The books. Yeah, I have a whole shelf on California gardening.
Oh, that's expected.
Yeah.
But water plants?
I have a whole shelf of, and I don't know why, of Western garden books.
Oh,
Yeah, you'd
well,
mentioned that before.
Western garden books are great to keep because the information changes. And
Yeah, sometimes they drop plants out that aren't being grown anymore.
Exactly. And I know if anybody from Sunset is listening, I'm sorry, but the last book that they released, which was years ago, because I think they went completely digital now, but was not a good one. It was not a great, they did something with the way that they indexed the plants, and then they dropped a ton of plants out of the book because I think they went to photos instead of drawings and other things. So I wasn't super happy with them release. I don't even know if they released a new one.
John, you got a couple of questions you better get to, too.
I remember the one year they dropped Hovenia dulcis.
Oh, you know what? You're not the only one that was.
Everybody remembers that.
That was a year that made everybody sick.
Well, because it's a tree I've always thought of getting, and I don't have one. The common name's the Japanese raisin tree. And I think it's the thickened stem of, where the flower would normally grow. The stem that holds the flower kind of thickens and becomes like a raisin, and you can eat it. Anyway, now that I've thought of that, I may plant one at my new home. Okay, we do have some people online, right?
Yeah, you got the question?
Got a rose question.
Okay, Carla says that she bought some roses at the auction last year, and I told her to wait before repotting it. And she said that it's either Festival Fanfare or Everest Double Fragrance. The one I would have cautioned on repotting would have been Festival Fanfare. And I have one that was the same age that Carla bought at the auction, and I just repotted mine yesterday. So, yes, it is okay to either repot it into a larger pot or put it in the ground if you want.
Okay. And then something off the topic of gardening, John, right after that.
Carolyn wanted to know what RPM records it plays.
So 78, 33 and a third, or 45?
33 and a third.
Okay.
No one uses, even when we had record players, no one used 78s.
Well, 78s went out a long time ago. But
yeah, they were from the 50s.
40s. I mean, way back.
Really?
And 78 RPM spun very, very fast. I mean, like, whoo, which would normally give you better quality the faster it spins.
Oh, really?
It's like old reel-to-reel tape. The faster that tape would spin, the better quality that you should get in terms of the audio.
Mm-hmm.
And 45s would be probably the least.
Well, why wouldn't 33 and a third be the least?
Because it's in the middle. Because 45, I don't know. Smaller record, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
I don't understand that at all either.
You know,
it's all digital now.
You know this kind of stuff. I have an acetate record that I want to get transferred into something playable. Can that be done?
Yes. There's a lot of people now that have these little businesses of transferring VHS, reel-to-reel, whether it's video.
I had an 8mm TV show transferred to DVD.
Yeah. Yes, there are people out there that can do that.
But the trouble with acetate records is that they crack and buckle. And I think the only way it could be played would be one of the old record players with a real heavy needle. Those
were samples before they made them into records. We have an acetate of this song we just did.
Well, my dad used to have we had a record player that would also record records. Record recorder, and the records that you cut were acetate records.
Wow, look at that.
So you could, and most of these were family type things.
Sure.
With all the interesting stuff like, say something. Well, what do you want me to say? I don't have anything to say.
When back in the 60s, we had my dad, he bought this huge Curtis Mathis television set. It must have been, 8 feet long, 7, 8 feet long. One side, you lifted it up, and there was a record player in there.
Uh-huh.
The other side, you'd lift up, there was a reel-to-reel inside, and, of course, the TV in the middle.
Oh, they were always, those consoles that they sold.
So I was in a band back then, and the guys would come over to our house to practice, and they'd plug everything into this TV set, and we had basically didn't even realize it, but we had a studio.
Yeah.
It was a studio back then.
So that leads to the next question
Yes.
on our Facebook feed, and I think it's Carolyn asked, are there any good garden resource books out there, or is it strictly digital?
Yeah.
And since you guys are all saying this nowadays, I will give my own opinion, and I feel like everything is online nowadays. Very easy to find information and get multiple resources to be able to figure out what is true to you. I'm sure there's plenty of good books out there, but I think everybody just kind of moves to the online ability to search for things.
What do you think? Oh, here's what I would say. I think you're right. I think there are still people who like to actually pick up a book.
Oh, yeah.
And just have it in their hands and read it.
Yeah.
So I think you're right in terms of most everything being digital. But I do think that people are looking for just a good old-fashioned book I can prop up in bed and read it.
But especially in the area of gardening, there's I would say less than 50% of the available information in gardening books is available digitally.
Mm-hmm.
Less than 50%.
Less than 50. That's just a guess. I'm just making that up. But of the 50% that is available, I would say probably less than 50% of that is true.
Yeah, right.
There's so much information.
So you get
like
20%
Tiger
of real
saying,
information.
you need to check it out. Just because, like we were talking about on Facebook, somebody's posting a picture of a 100-year-old rhododendron and the woman who planted it. And the size of the rhododendron and the age, I think the age is actually around 125 years. But that wasn't the woman that planted it.
No, of course not.
And it upsets me sometimes that they will put information just to try to sucker you into believing something and to share it. But whenever there's no details, you can pretty much be sure that it's fake. What's the name of the woman? Where is the rhododendron located?
Right. Where does she live?
Well, yeah.
What's her background, her
when
family?
When did she plant it?
How about this? Maybe her grandfather, grandmother, or mother planted it.
Oh, maybe it has nothing to do with her period.
It could be, exactly. But see, most people won't even give it a second thought. It's there to get likes, John.
But yeah, back to the book resource. I mean, that was the Sunset Garden book.
Right.
It's for Southern California gardeners, if you were a gardener, you owned a Sunset book because
Bible.
Exactly. You know what it said in the book. It gave you wonderful zone maps of where things would grow. It would give you great descriptions of how it would grow. And then like little things like, the height is between 10 and 12 feet, but normally it gets to 8 or something like that. Like,
yeah, in the wild it gets to be this tall, but in the landscape more likely to stay around here.
But as John just mentioned, if you looked up, a redwood tree and it says, oh, they grow up to, 120 feet tall, but meanwhile where you live, it only will grow to 18.
And with that, we're going to take our final break. One more segment coming up. Hey, we appreciate the questions, the comments on Facebook, even though some of them are not even garden-related. That's okay. Having a good time. Hey, the guys are going to be right back. That's us here on Garden America. Stay with us. Okay, just like that, we are down to our final segment here on Biz Talk Radio and Facebook Live. Been a quick, fast show covering a multitude of topics and subjects today.
Yeah, and so, when we were talking about, the books,
the magazines
versus internet, magazines, and then, the thing we run into, the biggest thing is regional information. I just make this up here, but from what I see for garden, I'd say over 70% of the information is dedicated to East Coast people. Meaning
that's true.
Meaning like a lot of the information that's put out there is all designed for people growing plants on the East Coast plants that do well, and all of that. So when you're watching, national news or you're reading a national distributed magazine, very rarely do people on the West Coast get a taste of what they can actually do.
And you know what? A lot of that is East Coast, whether you're watching sports programs, whether you're watching a TV show, everything seems to be slanted or geared upon the Eastern time zone.
Well, originally all the publishing houses were back there.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, knowing that.
Even the national hardiness zones, there were 10, now there's 11 hardiness zones. And Sunset had 24.
Yeah, just for the West Coast. I think it was California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, Arizona.
And I think maybe Utah.
Did they have Utah?
Utah.
Yeah. I mean, just to come up with that many zones for that area.
So you could look at the microclimates, instead of San Diego being zone 10, it had zone 21, zone 22, zone 23, zone 24.
And then they had A, B in those zones as well.
And, what grows in San Diego on the coast may not do as well 13 miles inland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like
that's
an El
obvious.
Cajon.
And we've talked about that with certain varieties of roses, John, because we mentioned that Green Planet is going to look a little bit different grown inland than it would be on the coast when I moved from inland to the coast.
Well, some roses are affected by heat, and then some are affected by the amount of sun that they get, too. A lot of the David Austin roses or roses that have a lot of petals don't open on the coast. They, get botrytis, bud rot, because there's just too many petals for them to open up, except when it's really, you're in the heat of the summer.
So with this is going to become a problem, I feel, because, let's go back to the Sunset book. There's not a lot of, effort to redo it because the money's not there.
Right.
Meaning they're not going to sell the book. So therefore, why are we going to research? Why are we going to pay people to do this research, authors?
There's no return.
There's no return on it, right?
Right.
So
that's why magazines aren't around anymore.
So the information on the internet that is good is based on stuff that was done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Well, since nobody's now redoing it, all of the internet information, for the most part, is old information.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It isn't changing. It isn't adapting like it used to. And so I kind of feel like we're going to run into this problem of information that's out there for our hobby, gardening, plants, trees, is going to start to become dated. And then the resources that are actually good ones, colleges, where a lot of times if you research plants, there will be a paper or something that's written, an essay by a student. But sometimes that's also just their own opinion as well, and not something to go back.
And nobody's going to check it out.
Yeah.
Just, okay, it must be the way it is.
Yeah.
When you come over, I'll show you my Encyclopedia of Gardening set from 1898.
How many books is it?
I think it's 8.
And how much of that information is still viable?
I don't know. Who's going to go read stuff from 1898?
I remember as a kid we had, I guess you could consider them encyclopedias, but they were called the Book of Knowledge. Mm-hmm. And there was about, maybe I want to say 12.
One of those the World Book Encyclopedia, World Book of Knowledge.
Is that what it was? Okay, yeah. Because I remember I was so fascinated because in one of them was a diagram and a picture of the human body.
Oh, yeah.
And I used to love looking at
it. It was clear. It was clear paper, and it used to overlap.
And my parents said, he's going to be a doctor.
It's funny you mentioned that
pictures.
because when they used to have encyclopedia salesmen. Do you remember?
They came to your door.
They came to your door, and I was at my cousin's house, and I always wanted a set, so he was showing my aunt the World Book of Encyclopedia, and she starts going, I don't know if I have enough money for that right now. He says, it's up to you. You want your son to grow up to be a lunch bucket? So she ended up buying the set. He became a chiropractor.
I like the lunch bucket. My dad was funny. Whenever I would say something halfway smart, he'd say, "Oh, you didn't go to school just to eat your lunch, did you?" What are you talking about?
Lila mentions that Pat Welch has some good gardening books. Her gardening for is it Southern California Gardening? Is that what it's called? That was an excellent book.
Yeah.
She also wrote a great book called All My Edens, which I really enjoyed reading. Is she still alive? No.
Good question. I was just thinking that when you mentioned her name.
Really?
Man, haven't heard about her in a while, so I'm not
she would be getting up there. She's really an interesting person too. Fun person to be around.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's see what else.
A couple of minutes to go here, guys.
Well, Carolyn had mentioned that, when we were talking about recording records,
right, that
her parents had made one of her playing the piano when she was 8 years old, and now she's 84.
Wow. How about that? History.
Yeah.
How fun. I was going through old pictures and videos just yesterday. I found an old hard drive, external hard drive, and I found videos of the kids and things like that. It's kind of fun to go back and see them growing up.
You always have to pay close attention when Tiger talks and uses the word old.
Because that's like the 1980s.
No, these are actually only like 10 years ago.
Yeah. An old external hard drive.
We've been in this building for 20 years.
It's like, we had an old self-driving car.
An old self-driving car.
Yeah.
All right, 1 minute to go. We should mention to the folks, we're not going to be here next week. Tiger's going to Cancun.
Yep.
But we're back the week after. Don't worry.
Yep. We will be back the week after. Looking forward to having a good show with everyone.
Right. And we're looking on hopefully getting a special guest in 2 weeks.
And if you want all these details, just go sign up for the newsletter now. Tiger says you can do it. Go to gardenamerica.com. Sign up for the newsletter.
Yeah, got to start pushing people to our website once again, gardenamerica.com. Hey, that's going to do it. Thank you so much. It's going to be hot here in California, in many places, so stay hydrated, as they say. For the entire crew, I'm Brian Main, along with Tiger Palafox, John Begnasco. Thank you for tuning in, whether it's Biz Talk Radio or Facebook Live. We really appreciate you supporting us. Until 2 weeks live, take care, be safe. Bye-bye.